On this episode of the Actual Fluency Podcast, I'm joined by Brian Kwong from Add1Challenge. We talk about the challenge and how to succeed in language challenges.
Welcome to the Actual Fluency Podcast, the podcast that gives you the tools and inspiration to learn languages faster and more efficiently. And now your host, Chris Broholm.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Actual Fluency Podcast. My name is Chris Broholm, as per usual, and today we've got a very special episode. And before we get into the interview, I just want to talk about how it came about. And it all started when I was in Polyglot Berlin Gathering in, the middle of June? So it's a few weeks ago. And I was busy socializing, talking to people, networking. But there was one guy that I hadn't quite had time to meet. Obviously, with over 200 people there, it's quite hard to meet everyone. But Brian Kwong, who I had seen from the Add1Challenge last year, was one of those people that I hadn't quite had a chance to talk to. So on one of the final days, I simply bumped into him and I said, "Hello, Brian, I'm Chris, and I do this little podcast thing. So if you ever want to come on it and talk about Add1Challenge, well, come on." And basically he was like, "Oh yeah, that sounds cool, and I'll be in touch and we'll talk about it." And usually what I do after these kind of conferences is when I come home, I kind of ping the people that I talk to, because you might not remember that you talked to, say, 200 people. But for some reason, I kind of put it off and I forgot about Brian for a second. And today I just randomly stumbled upon him on the Facebook Messenger, and I was like, "Hey, Brian, how's it going? By the way, you still up for that interview regarding your next Add1Challenge?" And Brian was like, "Yeah, we're launching it today, which is the 11th of July, which is the exact same date that this episode goes live." And I guess I can share a little secret about the show here is, the episodes are not recorded on the same day as they're released usually, because there's a lot of kind of editing work and there's kind of a lot of planning going into it, and I might not be free on every Friday, or the guests might not be free on every Friday. Usually I just kind of, I call someone and I say, "You want to be on the show?" And then I let them choose the time. I'm not, this isn't Oprah. So anyway, it was just really funny, and Brian was like, "All right, let's do it." And, it's really wonderful to see people be kind of have that mentality, which I do myself, is very, you want to just get it done, you want to do it, and you can be persuaded to do kind of things without planning too much, and I really love that. So today I'm talking to Brian about the Add1Challenge that just started, and I really encourage you guys to go check it out if you're serious about learning a language, because learning together is really more powerful than learning on your own, as we get into in the interview. But that's enough for me. As always, if you want to know more, learn more, or find out more about the Actual Fluency, go on to actualfluency.com and you can read my blog posts. You can read how I'm doing about Russian and kind of what's in store for me. So enjoy the interview, and I'll see you guys in a later episode. All right, on today's episode, I'm joined by a very special guest, Mr. Brian Kwong. Brian is the man behind the Add1Challenge, where people add additional languages. He also runs the site at Polyglot World that provides motivational interviews and helpful tips for language learners. Hey, Brian, thank you for coming on the show. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Chris. Thank you for having me.
No problem. Well, I'm excited to talk to you about the newest edition of the Add1Challenge that's going on right as we speak. But before we get into that, let's take a step backwards and talk about yourself for a second.
Yeah.
How did you get into language learning of that sort?
Well, how it all got started was maybe about 4 years ago, 3-4 years ago. I married an Austrian girl. And we're not together anymore.
Oh, okay.
Let me just get that out of the window first. After we got married, we moved to Austria. And the problem is, everything is good. The problem is that my ex-father-in-law, I call him Papa, can't speak any English.
Oh.
So I resisted learning German for 2 years while living in Austria. But eventually, I finally gave in and wanted to learn German to speak with him, to communicate with him, to build a better relationship with him, for him and for my then wife. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how I got into learning German. And how I got started was actually doing the 90 days challenge, the one that we're doing right now. But I was just basically doing a challenge on my own. And my goal was to have a 15-minute conversation with Papa on day 91 on video, and everything's on YouTube right now.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah, and so I made that goal, and that's how I got started.
All right. And did you have any kind of inspirations for this? I know Benny's doing the 90 days as well. Did you kind of peek at what he was doing at the time?
Oh, totally. I got inspiration from a guy named Manish Sethi from hackthesystem.com. He basically had a 90-day blueprint that I follow. And after finding Manish, and I found Benny. I'm like, wow, this guy's awesome. He's traveling the world, learning languages, and so I follow his model also. So you learn from everybody,
right? So you taught yourself German, or at least a lot of German, and where did you go from there? Did you go to a new language, or?
Yes, I went to a new language because, well, after we got separated, I didn't really have to speak German anymore. So
right.
So the next thing I look at is, okay, what is it after we got separated? I was asking myself, okay, what is it that I want to do and I haven't done, I still want to do. What came out was going to Japan, touring Japan.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is the perfect opportunity to learn Japanese. I've always wanted to learn Japanese. And at the same time, after the challenge that after I actually go through a challenge myself and then going to Japan, it'll be awesome. So that's what happened. I took on the Add1Challenge in Japanese, and then I went tour around Japan on a bicycle.
Wow.
And I cycled around Japan for 4,000 kilometers. So it was awesome.
Wow. And you got to use the language.
Oh yeah. In Japan is because I've been to Japan many times actually, but it's always Tokyo. And Tokyo, there's a lot of expat there. But if you go around the country, it's very, most people can't speak English. So if you want to connect with people, if you want to get a discount, if you want to get things done, you need to speak some Japanese. Yeah.
Right. Oh, excellent. So how did you go from, doing this for yourself to thinking maybe other people would be interested in this, or maybe it would be beneficial to have more people doing it at the same time?
Well, when I first started learning German, I was actually developing a language learning app. And that didn't go well. But at the same time, I was building an email list. So what happened was I sent a survey out to my email list. At that time, I only had about 200 people, 150, 200 people. And I sent it out and then sent out the survey asking people, what is your biggest struggle when you're learning a language?
Oh, that's a good one.
And then I got 77 reply back, and it's an open-ended question. People can write anything they want. It's not multiple choice. So what I learned from that survey, what I got is that I saw two different groups of struggles that people are facing who are learning a language. The first group of struggle is based around how to learn a language, how to memorize vocabulary, how to learn grammar, where do I get the best material, what are the methods, approach. That's one group of struggles. Okay. The second group of struggle that I saw was lack of motivation, procrastination, no time, don't have a consistent routine.
Right.
So what I realized looking at these two group of struggles, I realized that even if you have the best material in the world, best method on how to learn a language, if you don't have motivation, if you don't have a consistent routine, you would not learn any language.
Mm-hmm.
So looking from the experience that I had about learning a language in a challenge, I thought, what if everybody can strive on the same goal together, and we can help motivate each other, and we can support each other.
Right. So the group mentality.
Exactly. Community, group mentality, keeping each other accountable, sharing each other's victories, sharing each other's struggles, learning from each other, sharing resources. And that's how I got the idea. And yeah, and then when I launched the first Add1Challenge in September, I had about 5 or 6 friends that that I approach and say, hey, you guys want to do this with me? Let's all learn a language together. You're going to learn a language anyways, right? Let's do it together.
Right.
And they're like, oh, sure. Why not? Because they're all into language learning anyways.
Right.
Like, and then I launched it. I shared it. I thought I'm going to have like maybe 5-6 people, but 116 people showed up to the Add1Challenge.
That's a lot of people.
Yeah. I'm like, whoa, wow. Okay. I guess people need this. People want this because, you know, they see this. Because people, when you're learning a language, most of the time we feel like we're alone. Sure. And if we have people to understand what we're going through and learning together, striving for the same or similar goals together, it'll be a lot more fun and it'll be a lot more effective. Right. So that's how the Add1Challenge came along. Awesome. And I can definitely relate to, probably primarily the second group for me. I mean, finding the method and stuff, I always found that pretty simple. I mean, just read on any of the big language learner blogs, you're going to find lots of inspiration. Exactly. But the whole motivation of sticking with it and doing something every day, and that's definitely my problem. So I'm glad I'm not the only one. You're not the only one. Don't worry. But you're bringing it back, and that's obviously why I invited you on the show. And what's different this time around compared to the first edition of the Add1Challenge? Well, a lot has I'm not going to say the Add1Challenge is perfect. I mean, I don't have all the answers. So basically, I am just learning from each challenges and then talking to people. I talk to everybody on the Add1Challenge to get feedback. So I'm implementing new things from one challenge to another. So this current Add1Challenge, we are going to have a buddy group. And what a buddy group is basically just a quick touch-based communication. Say, hey, I'm going to do this today. This is what I learned today. Oh, I struggle from this today. Just a quick, you don't have to meet in person or anything like that. So just like maybe a Facebook message group. Right. So I match people up after people sign up. After I accept the people, actually we have an application process because we want people who are serious because this is all about community, right? Of course, So we're very careful of who to let in, and so we have an application process. So we make sure everybody's committed to do the work. Right. Because no matter how amazing the community is, if you don't do the work, it's not going to work. What would be the requirements for it? Like if somebody's sitting out there and thinking, I'd like to join this, but I have wife and kids and jobs and everything. What's kind of the minimum requirement you need to put into it? I mean, I know you can't give a precise answer, but if you had to estimate a kind of a minimum requirement of activity. I would say it's as long as there's consistency there. If it's 30 minutes a day for 5 days a week, that's great. Right. I think everybody, even if you have jobs and kids, we have plenty of people who have jobs and kids who still got amazing results because they're committed. They actually stick to their schedule and they have results. Right. So not that long, but the consistency is the key. Right. So checking on most days. One more time? Checking up on the other people most days and touching base, like you said, in the Facebook groups. Or yes, so we have a Facebook group where we can communicate there's a bigger group. There's Add1Challenge in action group, which everybody's in the group, right? Mm-hmm. And we basically break it into subgroup of 3. So we have a buddy group, and then we also schedule a study group for the people who are learning the same language. Right. So that people can practice speaking. Great idea. And I don't know, and yeah, so these are 2 things that we have, and the current Add1Challenge that we just opened up today and it's actually going to close on the 18th of July. We actually going to have Benny Lewis in the group, and his girlfriend Lauren. Awesome. Is going to be in the group too. She is going to take on Russian from zero. Oh, really? Yes. So she's learning. I'm sure Benny's going to give her tips and teach her, and she's going to say her progress, and we'll be all in the group. So it will be really awesome. It'll be a really awesome Add1Challenge. Right. Yeah, and of course Benny doesn't know Russian, so he can't really help her beyond the normal coaching that he's doing. Exactly. Well, if Lauren is struggling about how to learn a language, he can definitely step in and help. So if I want to sign up, I know this is a lot of work to organize, and there's a lot of kind of stuff going on behind the scenes. Yeah. What's it going to cost for me to sign up? It's going to cost $47 for 3 months of support or 90 days of support.
Right. That sounds like a very good deal.
It is an amazing deal.
Excellent. So I get access to the kind of the support groups and to everything. Do I get anything that we haven't touched on yet?
Yes, we have Google Hangout once a month with an experienced polyglot.
All right.
It's called Burning Questions. So as you're going through the challenge, you're in action, you're learning. Eventually, you're gonna hit a wall.
Of course, yeah.
Right. So if you have any burning questions, this is your opportunity to ask an experienced polyglot. And so in this Add1Challenge, the first burning question session is with Benny.
Right.
So if people join this Add1Challenge, they have an opportunity to hang out with Benny and ask questions directly. Or people can submit questions, and we'll go over the questions as much as we can with the limited time that we have.
Great. All right. So we've talked a lot about how the challenge is kind of structured and how you can get into it and how it's going to help you. But maybe we should, I wouldn't say a step back, but let's step to the side and talk about how you perform better. Because I know I met you in Berlin at the Polyglot Gathering, and I know your talk was on how to kick butt in a language challenge.
Yes.
And obviously you're probably referring to your own Add1Challenge, but
yes.
What if you could just summarize some of those? Was it 5 overall tips you had, or?
Yeah, we had 5 overall tips.
Could you share some of the biggest ones for the listeners? I'm sure they would be excited to know, kind of, as you're an experienced challenge learner.
Sure.
What would be some of the biggest tips that somebody can embrace?
The biggest tip. Okay, let me just run over them really fast. Okay.
Yeah, go for it.
The first one is you're perfect wherever you are in your journey. Your pace is the best pace. Now, if you're learning a language and you're watching and you're listening to this podcast, or you're watching YouTube, like these amazing polyglot video, most likely you'll be comparing yourself to them and say, oh my God, they're so amazing. I'm dumb, or I don't have the genes or something like that, or I'm not learning fast enough. I'm not making enough progress.
Right.
But that will slow you down, because that doesn't inspire you. That pushes you down, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you just got to get that wherever you are on your journey, wherever pace you're going is perfect. It's the best pace, as long as you continuously put in the work.
Right.
So so that's number one. Wherever you are is perfect.
Great.
Number 2 is distinguish and balance your playtime and study time. So playtime is basically what you love doing when you're learning a language. Some people love grammar, so they just dig into the books.
Right.
And that's great. They're very good at reading. That's playtime. Study time is something that you may not enjoy doing as much, but it will also help you advance in your language. For example, maybe you don't like to speak much. You don't want it, because learning a language is dynamic. There are different dimensions of learning. There's 4 areas, like speaking, listening, reading, writing. Right? So it's multidimensional. So it's very important to balance playtime and study time, so you can advance as much as possible. Because if you spend all your time playing, then you may not advance much.
Right.
In other areas.
People kind of drift to their preference, and although that is
exactly
good to have one, you need to kind of look at the balance between study and play. That's a great one.
Exactly. And everybody has different playtime and study times. So you got to distinguish what is your playtime for you and what is study time for you, and then you allocate accordingly, balancing them accordingly.
And I guess it has to be said in connection with the motivation earlier that some people might not have playtime, right? I mean, it's, some people might not see any of it as particularly, let's say, fun or something.
Exactly.
So even if that's the case, don't worry about it. That happens as well.
Now that's a great point, because most people, how do we know to learn languages? Go into books and read go open some course book, and from beginning to end, and hopefully you can speak the language by the end. Or the traditional way of sit in a classroom. You pay for a class and you sit in a classroom with a group of people, with a teacher teaching you stuff.
Yeah.
And that's boring, and that's
Yeah.
And that's the only way we know how to learn, right?
It's really bad.
I think what's I'm going to bring a little bit of Add1Challenge. What happened in Add1Challenge is that you're playing and experimenting what is playtime and what is study time for you. And if you don't have any playtime, this is when you can ask the community, ask how do you guys play? Or like, what are some creative ways that we can make it more fun? And that's part of the big thing in the Add1Challenge. People learn how to learn a language that's best for them.
Right. Drawing on the experience.
So, yeah, exactly. It's all experimentation because most people don't really know how to learn a language that's best for them. So you've got to experiment and try things out and develop more playtime and also balance the study time.
Yeah. Excellent.
So that's number two. Distinguish and balance your playtime, study time. Okay. Number three, most people had a problem with time. They don't have time because I understand everybody has to deal with their everyday things, right? They got to do what they got to do. They got to work. They got to have family, friends, and all that.
Yeah, definitely.
And so what I suggest is to create more time. You wake up early to create more time.
Oh yeah.
And most people, if I tell them that, they're like, "Oh my gosh, you crazy? No, I can't do it." And I'll be the first one to admit that I can't do it either if you tell me that. So here's the trick. The trick is to set up some kind of language exchange session 30 minutes or to 60 minutes before you usually wake up. That way, somebody's waiting for you.
Right.
You're not waking up early to open a book to study because you definitely fall right back to sleep in the books, right?
Right.
So that way you have somebody waiting for you. And what happens when you actually when you wake up 30, 60 minutes in that session, when you start talking, when you're in the beginning of the first 5-10 minutes, you may be struggling a little bit, but after 5-10 minutes, as you're activating your foreign language brain, just something about when you're activating the learning a foreign language, it wakes you up.
Right.
So what happens to me is every time I get tired or sleepy in the first 5 minutes, but by the end of the session, I'm wide awake and I'm ready to kick ass in the rest of the day.
Right. Great.
So, yeah. So that's
There's
number.
also a study done on. I read a study about school kids and the fact that they learn more in the morning. So there's also something to be said about putting your language learning at the beginning of the day rather than the end. I'm not saying it's totally impossible to study at night, but you retain more information if you do it at the up front in the morning when you just got up.
Totally. What happens with people? What I learned from the Add1Challenge, when people share with me, is that most of the time, by the end of the day, they're tired, they're drained.
Of course.
So it's like a struggle to open to do their studying. So if you actually get it out of the way in the morning, then you got one thing out of the way.
Yeah.
And you're ready to kick ass during your day. So waking up early to create more time it's really effective. Highly recommended.
Great.
Okay. So number 4, language learning is a team sport. It's not an individual sport, especially if you are learning to speak the language.
Of course.
If you want to speak with somebody, you need to speak with somebody, right?
Yeah, you can speak with yourself, I guess.
But yeah, that would be, I don't know how fun that conversation would be, or if you are, well, I guess you understand yourself, right? You know what?
Well, you think you understand yourself. You
at least think you understand what you're talking about, because you're just talking to yourself, even though you're saying it all wrong, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So eventually, if you want to communicate with somebody, language learning is a team sport.
Exactly.
So the more people you get involved, the better it is for you.
Right.
And most people are afraid to share what they're doing, especially if they're taking on a big challenge. It could be Add1Challenge. Most people are reserved and they don't want to share this. But when they do that, what happens is they're closing a lot of opportunity for other people to contribute.
Right.
Like, for example, one time when I was doing the Add1Challenge, I was just sharing with everybody as much as I can. Just letting other people know I'm taking this on. This is what I'm going to do. I'm going to make sure that happens on the day 91 so I can speak with Papa on video.
Right.
Because my punishment is if I don't speak with him in 15 minutes, if I can't hold a conversation for 15 minutes, I'm gonna have to wash his toilet and live with him for a week.
That's motivation. It feels.
Yeah.
Like.
So to motivation, for motivation for me, that's of course I had that set up. That's something a stick that I created. That's fun for me. Well, not washing the toilet is not fun for me, but but it's motivation for me to get going. At the same time, when I tell people, it also holds me accountable too. Right. So what happens is one of my friend is a German teacher in a high school.
Mm-hmm.
So she shared with her students, showing my video to her student, and her student are so excited. This guy wanted to communicate with his father-in-law, and let's help him. And so they created a project to meet me once a week.
Wow.
To help me with my German.
That's incredible.
Now that's more practice that I wouldn't have if I didn't actually share and tell people what I'm up to in life.
Right.
So by sharing what you're up to and involving people in your language learning on your goals, you allow people to contribute with you, and also you benefit.
Right.
So language learning is a team sport. And
you share it with people who actually understand. Like, you don't get the question, well, why are you learning that? That you might get from outsiders.
I actually have that. That's totally, I understand that happens, right?
Sure.
Which is why the Add1Challenge is so effective, because everyone in the Add1Challenge understands.
Exactly. That's why.
Because everybody's doing the same thing. So with this kind of environment, we'll definitely support you.
Like-minded people.
Like-minded people will support your goal, because they also want to do the same thing.
Exactly.
So the last one. Okay. Actually, this last one is something that happened in the previous Add1Challenge. It's when you're learning a language together in the Add1Challenge. When we share an idea with each other, just like how I'm sharing ideas with you, you're sharing ideas with me, we get new ideas.
Of course.
Right. So in the Add1Challenge, what happens? One of the Add1Challengers, name's Kevin. He thought of the idea of, hey, why don't we go into a Google Hangout, and we can share. One of us can share our browser in the Google Hangout. And so we have like 3 people. We're looking at his browser, and he will go into Google Maps, and we'll go to Japan together on Google Earth.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And then we can look in the streets. We can walk around on the streets in Tokyo.
Right.
So while we're in the Hangout, we can give each other the instructions. We can, say, hey, that's a ramen shop. Are you hungry? Do you want to go? So we can practice speaking Japanese in Japan on our computer, having a blast. So it's just awesome.
Yeah, that sounds amazing.
Yeah, so it's that's what happens when you learn with other people, involve with other people in a group, and new things comes up.
Right.
And so that's if you join the Add1Challenge, this is what's there for you. But if you don't join it, it's all good. See how you can apply it in your life, and maybe get a few friends and see if you come up new ways to learn the language and make it fun.
Right. Innovate,
exactly. Because this is really new, because most people learn in the traditional way, but it's time to, and obviously we all know that it's not effective. It doesn't work.
Right.
So it's up to us to do something about it.
Exactly. And indeed you are.
Thank you.
So those were 5 really great tips of what you should probably do if you want greater success. Do you have anything that you absolutely should not do when you're doing it?
Okay, great. That's a great question. What happens when most people join the Add1Challenge? They get really excited, and what happens is that if they do too much in the beginning, they'll get burned out.
Right.
Okay. So what you must not do is to overload yourself too much in the beginning.
Right.
You definitely get burned out, and you would not be able to sustain, because if learning a language is a journey, it's a long-term journey. It's not just 90 days. This 90 days is just getting you started.
Right. Exactly.
So getting you started, and the trick is to how you can integrate a learning routine with your life when you're handling everything else that's happening in your life.
Right. For further progress beyond this Add1Challenge.
Exactly. And that's what I encourage people to do in the Add1Challenge. You're not here just to do a sprint and do a 90-day thing. You are learning how to incorporate this in your life so it's become part of your life.
Right. So it's good to emphasize that you're not going into the Add1Challenge to learn a language in 90 days, although that would be nice if you could, but it's just kind of a stepping stone to further learning. Totally.
Right. It's a big stepping stone. And in meaning that it helps. It's very effective. So what not to do? So what I suggest is that it's better if you start small, meaning you study maybe 30 minutes a day for maybe 5 times a week. And if you can study more, then you increase a little bit of time, but not too much. And then if you want to increase more, then you slowly increase.
Build on it.
Exactly. You build on it instead of starting a lot from the beginning, and then you get burned out and you lose motivation.
Right.
So you build on it from starting a little bit, or build on it. Yeah. Because you're learning, this is a new thing,
Exactly.
you gotta practice. You need to see what works and what doesn't work.
Yeah. And adding from your first part of the interview where you talked about wherever you are is the perfect place to be. Again, if you're at 3 months and you're not quite fluent yet, don't despair and just give up language learning altogether. It's a process.
Yes, it's a process. But at the same time, you'll be surprised if you actually put in actually most people are surprised if people actually do the work and consistently practicing speaking with somebody. And I recommend using iTalki. It was a website that connect language learners with tutors easily, fast, and cheap. Right. In my opinion. If you actually schedule those, have a lot of those iTalki sessions, or you have a lot of language exchange sessions with native speaker, you'll be surprised how far you can go in 90 days. You may not be fluent, but you'll be surprised. I guarantee you how far you can go if you just practice speaking. Yeah, exactly. I mean, we've seen lots of people with doing just that. So it's definitely not a myth or anything. No, it's not a myth. All right, Brian. Well, it's been wonderful to talk to you, but there's one critical point that we haven't mentioned yet. How do I sign up? Okay, great question. How you can sign up is now depending on when you're listening to this podcast. Yeah, it's limited time, only a week until the 18th of July. It's only 18th of July. So the best way, I think, is to go to my website, polyglotworld.com. Right. polyglotworld.com, and then right upper corner there will be a tab called Add1Challenge. Excellent. So you click on Add1Challenge and you provide your email address and opt in to the email list and emails newsletter. Right, and that will give you the instructions. They'll give you the instructions to sign up, and if it's not open, then you'll be notified when it's open. Of course. It's still limited and there's still the application process, so just signing up doesn't guarantee a spot. No, it's an application, exactly. So even if you pay money, you apply, it doesn't mean that you will get accepted. Right. Well, I think that's a fantastic way to do it, so you make sure that people are motivated, because even if you have serious people, having that extra bit of financial investment actually also provides motivation. Totally. You're like, totally. I put $47 in this. I better, do it properly. Yes, so totally. It's extra motivation for the participants as well. It's all about, what I'm creating right now is all about how I can help language learners to break that first language barrier. That's why it's called the Add1Challenge. It's not Add2. It's not Add5. Right. It's Add1. Yeah. So everything that I do, it's around how I can help language learners around the world to be able to break that barrier. That's a wonderful way to end. Thank you so much for coming on, Brian, and I'll definitely be joining the challenge, assuming I can pass the application process. Oh, awesome, Chris. Yeah, that'll be awesome. Of course. Cool. Well, see you within. All right. Thanks, Chris. All right, see ya. All right.
For listening to the Actual Fluency Podcast. For more information, be sure to check out actualfluency.com. Until next time, enjoy learning and have a great day.